Dartmas is almost upon us, so welcome to our preview and predictions for the biggest tournament in darts, the PDC World Championship. The action begins at the iconic Alexandra Palace on Thursday night, so we're delighted to be joined by former major winner, Sporting Life columnist and commentator Paul Nicholson, as well as our resident darts expert Chris Hammer. We're going to go through the draw and hopefully predict the eventual champion. Now Paul, you've obviously played at Ali Pali and you've been there as a commentator as well. Why don't you tell us about some of your favourite experiences?
Well, my first World Championship was back at the end of 2008 in the 2009 Championship, and on debut I made the quarterfinals. I don't think anybody expected me to make the last day, even myself, but the experiences of that championship will live with me for the rest of my life. But after not being so good over the period of, say, 2015, 2016, 2017, I started to work for the radio and doing darts on the radio, which has become very successful. And it gave me some great commentary experiences as well, particularly when Fallon Sherrick had her run. I've never seen a media circus like it, quite frankly, but it's never really stopped since then.
Well, the atmosphere at Ali Pali is second to none, especially in the world of darts. Chris and I, we've obviously been down there. What is it that makes Alexandra Palace so special?
I think it's the fact that it's Christmas time. I think everybody builds this tournament up more than any other throughout the year because we have this lull in the schedule leading up to it. When you go to things like the Winter Gardens, there will be action pretty much the week before. But it's where you go to Minehead at the end of November, then everything stops. 3 weeks leading up to the World Championship, and there's this anticipation that no other event has.
It's also an incredible venue, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. The atmosphere, the noise levels are astounding. Just standing stage side sometimes, and I think how the players coping with that. It's not surprising some of them have earplugs in, is it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more people who have earplugs these days because they tend to get them custom made. Yeah, that's just our players these days.
What's it like though up on that stage with the crowd? I mean, they're a raucous crowd at Ali Pali.
One of the things that people don't realise about that stage is it's one of the easiest to play on because there's so much room. When you go to European Tour events or maybe to Blackpool or some other majors, the stage is a lot smaller, so you find the crowd is a bit closer to you, a bit more congested. It's still spacious, don't get me wrong, but it's not 128 feet wide, which is exactly what Ali Pali is. And you just got more chance to breathe, a longer walk up to the stage. I found it very comfortable.
Okay, right, tell you what, let's get cracking with the show. The format of the show is simple. We're going to go through each quarter of the draw and pick who will come through each one before predicting the final and hopefully the eventual winner. Right, quarter one. In the first quarter, Gerwyn Price is the clear favourite here, but it's fair to say there are question marks over his form, Paul.
Yes. When you look at what he's done over the last few seasons, he's won in Europe, he's won on the floor, he's won majors, plural, but this year maybe not as prevalent as he has been in other times. Now, let's face it, he's the number one seed for a reason because over the last 2 years he's won more ranking money than anybody else. But there are question marks because of the position he's in. He hasn't won as many tournaments this year as he has won in the previous years, so we're automatically thinking that maybe he's not the favourite for the title. And of course, he's in the same section of the draw as Raymond van Barneveld, who famously beat him in the Grand Slam last month. So for that reason, a lot of people are maybe tipping outside of this quarter.
Okay, so let's go into who your favourites to come through the section are. Chris, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, Price is a worthy favourite, but because of those question marks, my one to come through here is Ryan Searle. Now, about 12 months ago, he was dubbed the future of darts, wasn't he, by Peter Wright? People were going to start tipping him to win the world title, and then in the first few months of this year, he won a title, reached a couple of finals, and this could have been the year of Ryan Searle. Then he went off the boil a little bit, but it's fair to say in the last few weeks, his averages have got picked up a lot. At the Players' Championship finals, he averaged over 103 times, including in what you've called the match of the year, because you commentated on it against Dirk van Dijvenbode.
Anybody who says that that's not the game of the year between Dirk and Ryan Searle, they can have a word with me because it really was. It had everything. Yes, Ryan's had exactly the same year that you've just mentioned. He was good at the start. Had opportunities in the middle of the year, he didn't take them, but his form is trending in the right direction. But you just wonder if his preparation is going to be as good, if not better, than someone like Danny Noppert, for instance. Danny's won the UK Open this year, and there's this huge grey cloud hovering over certain people like Danny Noppert. Will they be in the Premier League next year? Someone like Danny Noppert needs to do something at this championship in order to be part of that elite. And I think, like I mentioned to you already, Chris, I think he, with that motivation, is going to come through this quarter.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 of the 3 female players in the draw, Lisa Ashton and Bo Graves, they're both in this quarter. How do you think they'll fare?
A lot of people are talking about Bo Greaves, and I think the way that we are looking at her against Willie O'Connor is the right way, because she's never played in front of a crowd like this before. She's got an amazing amount of experience for someone under the age of 20, but this is all about her first round game and whether she can come through it. Lisa has played here many times but has never won a match. There is a great deal of speculation from a lot of experts within the sport that think that this may be the championship where more than one woman wins a match. It could be Ashton, it could be Sherrick, it could be Greaves. Pick 2 of the 3, because anything's possible.
And before we move on then, quickly, what are your tie or potential ties of this quarter?
Well, mine is the Bo Greaves Willie O'Connor match. It just has to be. I mean, she won 52 matches in a row in the women's series. She averaged over 90 about 16 times. And
how often do we see a player with this sort of success?
Well, this year, every week.
with Bo all the time, but considering that the strength of the ladies' game is definitely on an upward trend, she's doing more than anybody at the minute in the world as far as in their portion of the sport. Nobody in the male game is having that kind of dominance because of the amount of players that can reach the heights, but she's reaching new heights and setting new records. That's probably why William O'Connor is practicing harder than ever for this game, because he doesn't want to be in the same sort of boat as Ted Everts and Mensa Sulevic and others from the past.
I mean, she won about 60 legs in a row in female competition recently, which is frightening. I think and I think the averages have been very, very good. I think she 107 against Fallon Sherrick in a women's series match. Now, the question mark is the format, isn't it? She's playing short formats, 3 sets against Willie O'Connor, who's, well, it could be end up being 5 sets, against someone who's so seasoned at playing at these big championships. He's had big wins. He's maybe not had the greatest year, but he's going to be so focused. He's got a very strong mentality sometimes.
Yeah, he's got a big chin on him. I think, I don't mean that in a literal sense, but he has done a bit of white collar boxing, but there's going to be a lot of focus on this game for the right reason. But I want to look at this game purely because I think it's a very good match between 2 very good players who are probably at the same level, and I can't pick it.
Okay, well, moving on to quarter 2 then, where Michael Smith is the favourite after finally winning his first major at the Grand Slam of Darts. Who do you fancy to come through this section?
Well, I know it's easy for me to say this, but I have gone for Michael Smith. When he played in the Players' Championship finals a few days after winning the Grand Slam, he looked quite tired. I wasn't surprised to see him eliminated early, but this is the right kind of lead up for a championship for Michael. He made the final last year. He's done it previously on another occasion, but it is arguably the most rapturous quarter when you think about Cullen in there, even Martin Schindler, who has been fabulous this season statistically, Vincent van der Voort, Luke Humphries, who is touted as a future world champion and someone who's going to make the Premier League. But you can't forget about Dave Chisnell and Steve Bunting, because they made the semi-finals 2 years ago. This is the best quarter and everyone's going to focus on this, and I think you've got to go for Michael Smith, but at a push there are some others like Damon Heta and Joe Cullen who could worry him.
Chris, how about you? We know you're a Chisnell fan. Are you going Chisnell?
Yeah, I think, well, and Michael Smith in this section, I just think he ticks every box now to be a world champion, doesn't he? We've got the seasonal form, I think, 5-6 titles, major win, really good at the Ali Pali, 2 finals. Any tough court will help because he just hits the ground running. He knows now how to win ugly, and do you remember that win against Joe Cullen at the
Grand Slam?
Yeah, when he just come back from the brink of defeat and he didn't even let Cullen have a match start, and it just shows how to do that kind of comeback. He's a different level of player as he was last year. So that's. But if there can be slip-ups, nothing's a guarantee. So I would look at Chizzy because the last few months he has won a couple of titles. He was very unlucky at the Grand Slam, I think, the way he lost to Gerwyn Price. He's good at the alley-pally, and he doesn't overthink, as we know. So I don't think he thinks about never having won a major. I don't think he's that bothered about that.
No, he doesn't focus on that at the minute. He's more focused on how happy he is in his personal life with his little boy now. Okay. And one of the greatest things about this quarter is it's got so much depth. There's going to be a lot of focus on Michael Smith now being a major champion. There's going to be a focus on Joe Cullen, who is incredibly, he's only the 13th seed, considering he's had his best season so far. I want to see Smith versus Cullen again later in the tournament, purely because that Grand Slam match was so great.
Yeah.
Fallon Sherrick is in this quarter. There's been a lot of speculation as to her inclusion in this tournament. I think that's all been swiped away now. We can focus on her playing Ricky Evans. But if you want my opinion, the game of this quarter in the first round is Keegan Brown against Florian Hempel. Because Keegan Brown won a tournament this year to try and save his card. He's now 65th in the rankings. So if he doesn't win a match, he's going to lose his tour card. And he's up against the person who won the PDC Europe Super League, which I wrote a Sport and Life column about. That's an absolutely sensational tie. And I think that one takes front and centre in quarter number 2.
Okay, well, let's get things moving along, actually. Let's get on to quarter number 3, where Peter Wright will hoping to defend. Will he be the fourth player to defend his title if he does it?
Yeah, I mean...
Adrian Lewis, Gary Anderson and Phil
Taylor, yeah.
That's the knowledge. That's why we've got Chris on the show. Who's your pick to come through this section then, quarter 3? Chris, let's come to you first.
Okay. Well, I wasn't going to say Peter Wright because of the issues with his wife Jo, who's thankfully now back at home and even designing his outfits for the Worlds.
That's good news.
And I interviewed him this week, and he's just in a really good place. He just seems and it makes you wonder whether the last couple of months, it was just personal life does affect darts players and any sports people. And it's only 12 months ago he won the world title again. He's had issues. He had his own health issues earlier in the year when there was another blip of form. And this is, I mean, when has a defending champion ever been like world number 2, fourth favourite, and as big as like 12-1 in places to win? He's been completely underestimated. No one's tipping him, but I just think that I think that he might prove a lot of people wrong, and he doesn't care about being written off. You know, some players get a bee in their bonnet, don't they, if they think people are writing them off. He actually likes being an underdog. He said the other day, I go into every game thinking I'm the underdog. He likes it. So I'm really, we know he can produce quality darts. It's not as if he's fallen off a cliff form-wise. I think he's done a few good tournaments in the last few months.
If you think about when he had his own health issues in August, he came back and played in Budapest and in Jena in Germany. The 2 weeks that he came back, he played sensationally in Hungary and lost in the first round, but then he won the following week. As far as being sharp is concerned, I've got no qualms whatsoever with that. He will be ready. I've gone for Nathan Aspinall in this quarter because I just think he's got a more doable section in quarter number 3. I just get the feeling that maybe Peter could possibly slip up in a very tricky section of his draw. He's got Christopher Tysky in there, Dimitri Vandenberg, he's had a lot of battles with. Kim Hybrex has played really well this year, and I get the feeling he's going to have a really good win at some point in this championship.
Okay, before we move on, a quick word on rising star Josh Rock.
Well, what can we say that hasn't already been said? There's a lot of people tipping him to even go the whole way in this, and I saw some odds recently saying he was 5th favourite, and he's never even played there before. But one of the reasons why that people are tipping him is because he's had a very similar form season to that of Rob Cross from a few seasons ago when he won on debut. Will it happen again? I wouldn't be surprised to see him lift that Sid Waddell trophy, but I just don't think he's going to this year.
Yeah, this is the thing. You look at his major performances. He hasn't gone really far in a major. That's not taking anything. This is his first year. There's no element of criticism. Going all the way in these it could be best of 7, best of 9 set matches, and he's never even played these matches before. And he's fearless. That goes in his favour. But I just think we're asking too much of him. I think Rob Cross had a few good runs in majors during his.
Well, he'd already made the European Championship final by then,
yeah.
So it's apples and oranges.
Yeah, and so I just think, just give him next year. He'll win it. I'll say he'll win it next year. I just don't want to think he can do it. If he does, it's amazing. A great story.
I think he'll win it within the next 10 years.
Yeah. Oh, it's more realistic.
Yeah, I'm on the fence here.
Just a quick one, tie of the round. Grant Sampson, ever heard of him? I bet hardly anyone watching this will have, because he came through the African qualifier, beat Devon Peterson against all the odds. There's hardly any data on what he averages. And I watched an interview with him. He's saying, I've only ever played in front of 40, 50 people. And his mind was blown that he couldn't comprehend that he's going to be playing in front of 3,000 people, millions around the world. And I think that's what makes this event special, isn't it?
Of course it is.
You get these, he stands up and no one will know what his action's like. Everyone will be willing him to win a leg. Even hit the board. I would struggle in that. If I'd only ever played in front of 40 people. I just think it's amazing. It's a great story. And I hope there'll be a lot made of it in the build-up to his match.
Okay, well that's one to look out for. Last but not least then, quarter four, where we find the hot favourite Michael van Gerwen. Is he going to sweep past everyone here, and who do you fancy to come through this section?
I don't think he can afford to think of the word sweep. He has had an amazing season. I've got so much respect for Michael and what he's done in 2022, because he's picked up some elite titles and he is now gunning for that world number one spot once again. I think he's been given enough challenges in his quarter, but if you think about the levels he's attained this year, statistically and in some tight situations, like that Josh Rock match at the Grand Slam, he was tested. I think he's got enough in the arsenal to come through this, but he's going to have to go through the likes of Dirk van Dijvenbode. He's going to have to go through the European champion Ross Smith. You've got old adversaries like Gary Anderson and Mervyn King. Chris Dobie is a bit of a dark horse in the bottom section of this quarter, but you look at Rob Cross and you think, oh, I actually hope they play each other later in the tournament, because they could have the same sort of battle that they had en route to Rob's win, which was the best game that Ali Pali's ever seen. More of that, please.
Yeah. Semi-finals. Let's quickly touch on the semi-finals then. Paul, let's start with you. Who makes you semi-finals, and then who do you think is going to go on to make the final?
Well, I think Michael van Gerwen, if you look at his section, I think he comes through. I think he's going to play Nathan Aspinall in the semis, and in the top half, then it gets a bit trickier. But I'm going to go Michael Smith against Danny Noppert. I think I've gone with form. I've gone with people who have genuine motivation. But ultimately, I think it will be the Michael Derby in the final, Smith against Van Gerwen, with Van Gerwen getting his fourth world title, and he will edge closer to that Dutch record that he wants. He wants 6 more than anything else in his career.
Chris, are you going?
So I'll have Ryan Searle and Michael Smith in my first semi-final, and as you probably guess, I'm going to go with Smith. And then in the bottom section, we're going for, who did I say, Peter Wright, and then probably Michael van Gerwen. I think Chris Dobie, as Paul alluded to, is a really good little outsider to win the quarter, because he has beaten MVG now.
Yeah.
And I think he likes playing on that stage. But I think logic, you can't look away from MVG. And then
so you think MVG is going to lift the trophy?
No. I think he'll get through that section and play Peter Wright. I'm just looking forward to another instalment of that rivalry. And I'd like to see, I can't say Smith Wright because we've already had that, but it would be a great fight. Any little combination of that final would be great. But I think Wright's just a really good value pick to win the whole thing at 12-1. Smith just ticks all the boxes, so he's like my winner. Because I think you've got to oppose MVG. He's a very short price and anything can go wrong in darts. He's a fair favourite, but you wouldn't want to lump on someone that short in World Darts Champ.
I just like his form, and I think he's more ready to win his 4th world title than at any point in the last 3 years. And he got close, remember? So being close is a motivator. He wants to get that 4th title. He would become the first, well, not the first, but the only 4-time world champion in the world in the male game. Lisa Ashton's got 4 women's world titles, but he would edge closer to iconic status, almost mythical status, because there's only 2 who've got 5, Bristow and Barneveld, and then obviously Taylor's on 16. But just one more thing on Peter Wright. He's the only person to have lifted the Sid Waddell trophy with one hand, because it's that heavy.
Well, there you have it. Michael van Gerwen for Paul. Michael Smith for Chris?
Yeah.
Michael Smith for Chris.
Yeah.
It's Nell's hat to it.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's our preview for the World Championships. Don't forget to visit sportinglife.com throughout the championships for daily previews and all of the latest news.